What's up, guys? Let's take a look at another CodeWars exercise. This one's called Password Validator. Someone asked me about it, and it's a great example for how to do things in a long way or a medium way, or maybe if we can get our stuff in order, a very short way. So we're going to create a password validation function. Whenever you make a password, it might not be long enough or not have the right variety of stuff. So let's see what they want. At least one uppercase, at least one lowercase, at least one number, and the whole thing is at least 8 total. So they tell us we're permitted to use any methods, and I think what they're referring to is, regular expression or not. We can use a regular expression, or we can just use Python syntax with string methods and maybe some comprehension type stuff. So let's take a look. I'm just going to write out one thing at a time. What do we need? Well, we need to say char.isUpper for char and string. We need at least one of those. So I'm going to say any of that. So this is going to say if any of our characters is upper for characters in the string. And then I need to do that same thing for is lower. We got to have a lower. And is, I think there's one called is numeric for the numbers, right? So we check, okay, if any of these is uppercase, if any of these is lower, if any of these is numeric. And then finally we have to say if len of string is, I'm going to say greater than 7, because it has to be 8 or more. And for some reason, I don't like greater than or equal. So how could we do that? Well, we could say this and, right? It has to be this and. But whenever you have a list of things and they all have to be true, we can use a Python function called all. So we could say return all of these things. And so this will treat them as one big tuple. If all the things in this tuple are true, we're good. And I know it looks weird having the double parentheses, but that's how it needs to be. It doesn't take separate arguments. It takes one big argument which has stuff inside of it. Now if I test that, it'll work. I probably would space it a little differently like that, just to make it clear, but that would work. However, this is very repetitive, right? Like saying this and saying this and saying this are all the same thing, and in fact I made them by copy pasting. So surely there's a way to save ourselves the trouble, right? Do I really have to say char for char and string 3 times? Do I really have to say any 3 times? Do I have to stack them up like this? Is there a way to loop through, just like I'm looping through the characters? And yeah, there are. So let's take a look at the solutions from other people, because they're so varied, even though we're just doing the same thing. There are a lot of ways to write this, and I don't feel like showing you myself. I feel like showing what other people have come up with, because the charm is all about the personality. Like you see, oh, here's how he did it, here's how she did it. So let's take a look. The first one, beautiful. I love this. He says, hey, these criteria of lower and upper and digit. So I used the is numeric method. He used the is digit, which is like a single one. That's great, right? Like we say, hey, these are the 3 criteria, and then do them for each criterion applied to each letter, blah, 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 using map instead of the for, char, and string type expression, but it's the same idea. And this is really nice. It has a lot less repetition, and I think it's pretty great. Now the len doesn't fit into that because we're not checking one character at a time for some quality. We're checking the whole thing. So we got len of that and all of the criteria happening at least once. So that's really great. It's doing exactly the same thing as mine. but it's shorter, less reading, less typing, and it's easier to change, right? If we wanted to add another thing to the criteria, we could just add it right here instead of having to like copy paste and make a big blob. This next one uses regular expression, the RE, which is a way to search through text for, you know, the example I always use is looking for email. So you can say, hey, I'm looking for email. It's got to be some amount of characters, and then an at, and then a few more, and then a dot. And so you can describe that kind of thing with the syntax using brackets and stars to give different sections. So this is saying like, hey, there's got to be at least one of the uppers, at least one of the lowers, and D stands for digit, of course, and the whole thing is 8. Regular expressions are sometimes hard to read, but this one, fair enough. This one starts with a big old comment because I don't know why, but hey. And then doing exactly the same thing as ours, except with ifs instead of the any and all. Well, we still got the any in there. So I'm getting a phone call. I'm going to end it now, but I wanted to show this because I thought it was a nice one.